Hey, and welcome to the Creative Coffee Break. My name is Werner Puchert, and I'm a creative entrepreneur. And I go live on LinkedIn and all the other channels in the world on Friday afternoons when you're having your beer to talk to interesting people, because I believe that all the world's problems are just interesting design challenges in disguise. And today is going to be none other. I've got an awesome individual on my show today. I'm super stoked and excited to have a conversation with her. Also, what is super important, because I have to apologize to the whole of Poland, is that I've been doing these shows and I haven't had a Polish fellow countryman on the show yet. But the reason for that is to really just test out the show, make sure everything works, and then bring on the big guns. And today is one of those. I'm super excited to introduce my friend Kasia, but in a second, I just want to remind you that below you can see my little URL. I want to invite you to join my mailing list. I do these things, I take breaks, and sometimes I've got some interesting topics that might be relevant for you. So if you jump into that mailing list, I send people a notification when I get people on board, and maybe when there's some special things. So that's the best way to keep in touch with me and to see what's going on. Now, for the person that I want to bring on stage very soon, she's a dear friend and a colleague. I worked with her for a fair amount of time. And the more I work with her and the more we hang out, the more she gets irritated with my stupid sense of humor. And the more I get to know how awesome she is. She's got a background in marketing, so she's kind of cut her teeth on that space. And I think that's why we also get along, because there's this kind of marketing DNA. And funny enough, I was in a conversation today during the course of the week, long week, and where an individual was talking about being in a conversation with a whole bunch of CMOs. And one of the key topics that came up in this conversation about the future of marketing is the word experience. And I think we're going to touch a lot on that word. And that's also why my friend Kasia is so important, because not only has she cut her teeth and become a legend in the world of user experience design and service design, specifically focusing on research, but she has really kind of shifted her career into the space of customer experience, and also like building this kind of overarching view and how to manage it, how to implement it. She's also currently, because she's not going to be on the show for too long because she's got a lot of work to do, she's wrapping up a PhD in management. And she's got about 20 years of experience. And also she's going to be talking soon at the event in Hamburg, one of her favorite places. But I want to read you the topic of this talk. It's about brands. It's pirates, outsiders, and nasty old guys. And then also she sent me this profile that I want to read to you as well. She's a well-assimilated outsider, Hamburg psychophilic. I need to talk to her about what that means. For several years, she has been exploring the secrets of brand strategies, referring to her own products at night, and just finishing her doctorate on this subject. In her free time during the day, she manages projects in the area of service design and product design, as well as customer experience at Deloitte Digital. And I would also be remiss to mention that she's also a mom of two awesome daughters who generate all kinds of interesting stories. But you have to be a close friend of Kasia to know what I'm talking about. So Kasia, super stoked to have you on the show, and thank you for joining me here. I don't know if I butchered your profile, but if you
Thank
can
you
take
for
a
this
minute.
for this invitation for this introduction. And first of all, I love your sense of humor. Then don't
But
say
sometimes
such things.
you shake your head and look at me and go like, Werner. And that's always the
It's
best
my
of
sense of
times.
humor. You don't get my sense of humor. That's very simple. Yeah,
Cool.
thank you for all of this. I'm very proud of writing about myself, that I'm a well-assimilated outsider at the conference bio. So thank you for sharing it with the whole world.
Of
And
course.
everything you said about myself is true. I suppose that we will be talking today mostly about this free time activities which I do for the normal work day usually.
Yeah, not what you really want to do, but I mean,
Yeah, it's not
Kasia,
true. It's not true. I love all the streams of my activities equally.
yeah,
It's
you
just
keep
a puzzle that you have to merge in this very short time of the day.
exactly. And Kasia, I want to just, you must forgive me. Like, I just want to jump into what we were discussing before, we did this live. And I think I want to start off with kind of just where you put me straight. I mean, initially, I was thinking about how we can discuss in a more deeper level around research and the topic of research. But then also, I realized during the course of the week, as we discussed yesterday, that not only have you grown in your career, there's nothing wrong with research, but you've also kind of built this whole perspective around how this plays into customer experience, and how important it is to interact with your customers, understanding what they do. Can you riff a little bit on, or talk a little bit about, how you moved from this kind of researchy thing into customer experience, and why these two topics relate so close to each other?
I think it's a very logical consequence. So once you design something and you use design for you use research for designing the things that will be important for your users, that will be friendly for your users, that will be usable for them, then you succeed and you launch a product, you launch a solution. And what then? Then you have to manage this solution. Then you have to have an idea on how to develop it, where to go with it, how to improve the interaction with your users, their experience, in fact. So once you start with designing your experience, your user experience, then you have to manage the user experience. So my understanding is that there are two sides of the same topic. There's no design without managing experience later, and there's no sense, no clue in managing any experience without being ready to redesign it constantly, listening to your customers. You cannot just hear your customers and introduce the solution and think that it will simply last. You have to keep this contact with the people who use your solution constantly in order to change and to be still relevant for them.
Exactly. And the thing is, I mean, and I think this is where this interesting kind of, perspective plays in, is because I think sometimes we just get blinded by where we sit and where we work day to day, right? And when you mentioned this yesterday, and I just want to reiterate it, where there's the kind of the designing of the experience and then the managing of the experiences. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
bespoke things that happen in the design phase, right? And like you always say to me, Vanner, the research is not a freaking phase. It's kind of an ongoing thing. But it becomes even more important in management, because you can't really manage customer experience without actually kind of looking at how
Having the
customers,
perspective
yeah.
from
And
the
that's
customer,
beyond
absolutely.
satisfaction, right? That's the other thing I wanted to add, because like some
It's
folks
more.
I know, it's like, yeah, we've got a good satisfaction score. Like, what are we talking about here when you're talking about managing customer experience?
I think that satisfaction is an important word here, which very often means we measure our NPS, Net Promoter Score, and that's it.
Exactly.
But it's not all. So first of all, NPS is not the ultimate satisfaction indicator. It's just one of them potentially. But you don't always have to ask people about their satisfaction to learn about their experience. It's very good to not ask the people, but observe what they do, how they behave. You probably when you have the product that is live and interacts with your users, you probably will have a lot of data around it, a lot of data that shows you how do your users interact with you, how do they convert, where do they bounce, what problems they meet. They will probably tell you about it without being asked. They will call you
Yeah.
and tell you what problems they have. They will write the messages, they will write the reviews. So it's really a lot of data that can be utilized for understanding their experience. I love the word experience because the sole word uh, focuses us on the perspective of the other people, of the people you design for. So the experience is something different from your organizational perspective. You as a product owner are at the other side of this experience. So once you want to do anything about experience, you have to change sides, to change view, and look with the eyes of your customers always.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to kind of step into their shoes. The thing is, like, I mean, we didn't really like touch on this in the pre-show and like in the notes, but I wonder if you could give a comment on this, because I mean, it's something that I struggle with sometimes. Is that, you know, when you step into the service design kind of UX world and you think about experience, you think in it in one way, and when you work on the customer experience side, I feel there's a difference between that. Do you agree, or are you completely confused what this artifact is talking about when it comes to experience?
I would not fully agree, because usually for most of the companies that start to going this on this journey of managing experience, customer experience, they start with solving problems, with fixing problems. So
Making it easier, right? Make
it's
like ease of use, that
and
kind of
it's
stuff.
not really creative. It's not really creative. It's not really exciting. Let's say it's just okay. We did some design work. We did some inspirational work. Now we have just to make sure that we're fixing problems, that we're doing it the right way. So it's the most approachable way of thinking about customer experience. But customer experience is not about fixing problems. Customer experience needs to be creative, it needs to be innovational, it needs to be inspirational as well, because otherwise we will not win with our competitors, because all gain with customer experience comes with you go beyond being just
Exactly. And
okay.
I think it kind of leads on to what Michał just posted in the comments, right? And thanks for your note, Michał. It's like, you know, we spoke about satisfaction, but then, you know, what about pleasure? And I think that's kind of taking that step further to really figure out, you know, how you can surprise and delight
Yeah,
customers.
it's something on top, and you have to design what you will give on top to your customers. If you're just removing any pains, it's still not a customer experience.
And then the other thing, you know, like, you talk about pains, right? And like some of my clients that I work with, like they have a lot of clients or customers that have pains, and they let you know about those pains all the time. But then there's also kind of the school of thought that, you know, good customer experience design is not really about or just only focusing on trying to solve the pains of a certain group of customers.
As I said, it's not enough. On one hand, it's not enough. You have to understand what you can, what sort of pleasure or excitement or involvement or surprise you can bring to your clients in order to build their engagement, to raise emotions, because emotions are extremely important in building this attachment. But on the other hand, not necessarily all pain points are equally important. Sometimes it's more, it's a better idea to leave those minor pain points away and focus on these opportunities for really meaningful experience for your customers, where this opportunity appears.
It's kind of
Because
this,
really happy customers can sometimes also skip these pain points,
and I
make
like how
them
you
not.
talk about like the emotional part, because if like you know, if you think about designing meaningful and memorable experiences, emotion needs to be a part of that, right? But then also I think what you're talking about is also the balance between I always think about customer experiences like time well saved and time well spent. And I think sometimes we're so focused on the time well saved that we forget about creating the like Michał said, the pleasure, the time well spent for customers.
I agree absolutely. So what you will remember from any sort of experience, you will remember the good and the bad. You will not remember the things that are indifferent. So only being significantly better than the expectations or significantly worse than the expectations, you really create a sort of experience. But to understand what you really create, to understand what will be the effect of what you deliver, you need to understand what do your customers expect. If you don't
Exactly.
know what they expect, you don't know where you are versus these expectations.
And it's like Gerrit just pointed out, is don't worry, don't only focus on pains, focus more on the jobs to be done. Like what are customers trying to achieve, right? What is their goals and their aspirations? Thanks, Gerrit.
I
Kasia,
agree.
like, sorry, I spoke right over you. You just should slap me around like you usually do. But anyway, we were also going to talk a little bit about how you do this, right? Because I think we're kind of getting into the theory of this. I'm trying to twist your arm to tell me more about what happens in your secret box of tricks, right? Because you've just spoken a little bit earlier that managing it, you need to grab all these data points. But there's sometimes like this feeling that, okay, cool, I'm asking customers via a survey, how they feel about things. And of course, you can use social media and social listening, all these other things. But can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing where there's opportunities to gather more data?
It depends on the purpose and on the phase of job where you are. Now we're talking about more about customer experience and managing customer experience than looking for this basic inspiration. So for managing the experience around the existing product, I would recommend to look at your business data, at the data that mirrors the behavior of your customers, analytics data, e-commerce data, any data from your contact center, and claims from your customers. Usually it's a lot of information on board that can be utilized. And it's good to think how you can merge these different sources of information, plus the surveys you mentioned, plus social listening, plus maybe some marketing research that's in another stream of work, plus some initial exploratory research that has been done previously when you were designing the basics of the fundamentals of the solution. It's a huge challenge to combine all this knowledge in one picture, but it's worth doing. However, it's my advice would be that it's always good to think about the questions you need to answer with this data and these questions, because you can ask many different questions and you can find many different answers, and you can really think in it. And to avoid it, it's good to know what you want to do and adjust your research activities, knowledge diving activities to the actions you plan. This will be
That's
your
interesting.
the
What's your purpose, the
clear
North Star, or your
direction. Yeah.
mission? Yeah. That's actually quite
If you are
interesting.
if you're not ready to utilize the data, if you're not ready to utilize the knowledge, don't waste time for getting it.
That's an interesting comment there, Kasia, because like I'm gonna explore that a little bit, because I think sometimes there's this kind of idea that, okay, cool, let's just see where the flow is, like what's happening with the customers at the moment. But actually, if you don't have some kind of focus or purpose or hypothesis at the beginning before you step into this space, you're just gonna kind of fall around trying to solve problems that might not be important to your business.
You will lose a lot of time, and you will be really disturbed with all the knowledge you have without knowing what you will have to do with it. So I would start first with the hypothesis, with the hypothesis that is on purpose with the actions you want to take. You have to ask questions to yourself: what I need to do, what decisions I have to make, and then what do I need to make this decision. So I
Wow.
would recommend to start from the end.
Yeah, and
from
then
this from defining the decision.
that's interesting. I haven't thought of it like that. Because I always think that there's this magic dashboard and we all just go sit in front of it and then all the answers pop onto it. But you have to actually look through the lens of your organization, not just the data. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Kasia, just from what you've seen on your end I mean, of course, not taking account that there's a lot of NDAs on your side of the world, but what are you seeing? Like, is organizations overwhelmed at the moment? Like, are they able to kind of look at solving some of the existing problems, but then also have the ability to look forward? Like I feel like sometimes you get so bogged down to try and solve the smaller things that you're not able to actually look at the future.
It's a challenge, and I think it's different in different industries in different parts of the world. So traditionally, America is more advanced than Europe in terms of managing customer experience and the organizational maturity here. But when we look, at least in Europe, at the companies, I think it's a moment of challenge. How to transform all the data we can have around our customers into the actionable insights and into the decisions that we were talking about. And I started with the notion that customer experience needs to be inspirational and needs to lead to the innovations. It needs to be about the design as well, not only like maintaining the existing solutions. So if you want to have this inspiration, you really need to use this data very properly. And what we see in many companies at the moment is that innovation is completely separate from the from managing the solution. This is the challenge that I see. Use the data you have, use the constantly collecting data around your existing product to leverage your thinking to the innovations that are rooted in your existing customers, in their existing way of operating, of behaving. Try to find the like opportunities that you build by your solutions, by your tools, by your activities with your customers, and not to do it completely separately. You don't need to start the new processes. You can have the processes rooted in what you have on board already. That's the challenge.
Yeah, so having something in place is better than having nothing or starting completely from scratch.
Usually, but from the organizational point of view, where we usually still have silos, it's sometimes not that easy. Sometimes it may be easier to start the innovating process from scratch than to leverage from what already exists.
And then, because I'm still trying to get my head around this idea, because we're kind of interchanging the whole innovation part and then the customer experience part as well, right? So the managing of this, what are you seeing, on the management side? Because fundamentally, also when you started talking about this kind of data that's coming in and that's coming from all these different places, is there like a silver bullet platform that you can gather all the data together? Or is it kind of like using little bits here and there? Like like how, and what kind of people are doing this work at the moment?
For me, it's a part of digital transformation, which is of course a very broad topic touching many different areas in the companies. But data is a sort of fuel and is a sort of blood in veins of all this system. And the part of the great importance is the IT integration of different sources of data. Without it, you will not be able to see the full view. You will always struggle with having this information here and this information here. And theoretically, we know everything, but it will take us 3 weeks to have the answer to the simple question by merging this data from different sources. So it's really worth thinking about it as an IT challenge as well. There are solutions that help to merge this data. That are solutions that help to transform them into the actionable dashboards. But anyway, it's a matter of integration of different sources of data.
Kasia, this is a bit of a side kind of like, I mean, we didn't really discuss this and you might not have a real answer on it, but like, how do you see marketing kind of playing into this space? Because I've in the last couple of weeks, I've been working with some teams that use a lot of marketing data, a lot of segmentation, a lot of kind of stuff. And like I mentioned, and this is true, that some of the top end CMOs are starting to think about the role of customer experience and experience in the marketing space. And I'm not talking about a marketing campaign experience. Ultimately, it's product experience. Like, have you seen anything on your side kind of crop up from a marketing starting to kind of leverage some of this customer experience stuff?
I first of all, I don't agree that marketing campaigns are something distant from customer experience, because it is a part of customer experience, and it's good to think about it as a part of customer experience. All the communication we
Right?
have with the customers are part of their experience with us, with our company. So marketing activities, also this advertising or other forms of communication, are on their journey and are building their experience. So it makes sense to think about it from the experience point of view as well.
Yeah,
I
because
see
I
a
mean,
clear
no,
link
you actually have a
between.
great point there, because I mean, because like I'm like, the reason I brought it up in that way is that sometimes there's this kind of focus, and I'm talking from like an old advertising guy, that the marketing campaign is such a great thing, like it's kind of separate from what happens in the actual organization. But if you do it properly, the marketing campaign becomes an extension. It's like a taste, a forbearing of what you'll experience within the organization. Therefore, if you have a great experience in the marketing campaign and then step into the organization and it doesn't hold up, that could be a problem.
I think that we're quite moved forward from the concept that this mass communication is like advertising campaigns are indifferent to the moments of our life, to the detailed segmentation and so on, because it's a mass communication. Because media are so fragmented today, and in the same time they are very well targeted, and we have a lot of data that helps us to target very precisely when using media, even the mass media. And the concept of targeting to the micro moments, to place the communication to the detail of your life where it can be really meaningful, it's not something totally new. And it's exactly about managing the experience with the tools of the communication. So it's not that easy that you can just make a TV advert and place it in the most popular program. It's just a part of the story. You still need to manage these micro moments. You still need to be where it is important for your customers with these different forms of communication that are available today.
And Kasha, like, I have to ask, like, have you seen any like funky stuff like artificial intelligence, all these kind of things coming to play into the customer experience space? Because you're talking about this mass amounts of data that needs to be trudged through. Like, there must be something happening in that space.
It is, of course, it is. When we're talking about communication, it's for optimizing campaigns, optimizing the not only marketing campaigns but also communication, like sending the reminders, notifications, and such things to the customers, because not all of them need the same treatment here. You mentioned segmentation. So segmentation is something that has to be taken into consideration, that we have different types, different profiles, different needs. But also for creating the good experience, it is something that you have to have in your mind constantly. If you want to surprise your customers, if you want to deliver the positive emotions that are above expectations, you must be aware that it's a never-ending story, because once you surprise your customers, after some times it won't be a surprise anymore. So you have to think about something else. And tools like artificial intelligence help to digest the data and predict the future preferences, predict the future moments of truth where you can act, where you can enter with your surprises, with your meaningful experiences, both in communication and in any other form of interaction.
I think it's super, like it's such an interesting space because I mean I had a conversation today where we were talking about, and this was more in the design space, right? Not so much in the management of customer experience, but at designing new experiences. And even for me in the design space, it's also repetitive, right? It's not like you design something and then stop and then it's magically solved. But I like where you're going with the idea, and I don't know. And I'm making a statement, so I want you to kind of shut me down if it's not true. But I think sometimes we think that customer experience can be solved with one swell swoop. You know, doing X is going to solve the problem, but it's not. It's an ongoing kind of nurturing of the experience.
It is. It's first, it's logic that I mentioned. So you cannot surprise with the same trick all the time. You have the same audience over time. So to build emotions, to amuse them or attach them to your brand, you have to think of the new nudges. But your audience is also changing, is also evolving. Well, if you know their needs, if you know their focus, if you know their preferences once, it doesn't mean that it will be the same in a year or two, especially now when we are in such a crazy moment in time when everything changes. But many companies observe huge changes in the needs profile of their customers. So it's nothing that you can. And the third thing, the market around you changes. Your competitors teach your customers different expectations, different behavioral patterns. You still have to be aware of what's going on. You cannot just settle down on your success here.
Keep on working on it. And then Kasia, the other thing I wanted to ask you, right? So I mean, we've now spoken about like big organizations, and I also want to tip my hat to Micha, who keeps on firing off this like with knowledge bombs here in the chat about like what's going on. I just want to like bring that just as a side comment because I thought this is quite interesting as a kind of wrap. It's like machine learning is about finding patterns. IA may help to find something behind that pattern, but usually we are talking about recognition machines or something. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Micha. Yeah. So thanks for that, sir. Keep it coming. But where was I going with this? But the thing is, you know, we're talking about, and usually when I think about you, you go in and you go into the basement of a big organization, you kind of like unplugging wires and fixing things and advising. But like, do you have any recommendations or, you know, thoughts for someone who is starting maybe in a startup or a new business or maybe a small entrepreneur? Like, you know, what can you do from the get-go to kind of, you know, make sure that you are managing the experience rather than trying to be on the back foot and, you know, solve issues as they come in?
I think it's about looking for the inspiration, and inspiration comes from looking at the problem with the different eyes than yours. So in my opinion, it's always worth to find the most surprising customer segment, surprising for you as a manager, and try to understand their perspective. It can be achieved in many different ways. I'm an ethnographer by education, and I believe in this very direct contact with the people, understanding their context, their environment, sitting with them at their real world, talking, seeing how they use our solutions. It always opens your eyes. And when you want to go beyond where you are, you have to find this inspiration. You have to find this new side on new view of the problem.
Perfect. And then
it doesn't have to be big. It has to be challenging in terms of, you know, leaving your comfort zone, but it doesn't need to be a huge study like 1,000 people.
Exactly. I think that's kind of the thing that a lot of my entrepreneurial friends, like when we start talking about research, is like, this is going to be hectic. Like, it's going to be an army of people. It's going to be too much to manage. But I mean, like dipping your toe in, like you say, having a few conversations, doing some interviews, reaching out to people, doing the basics from the get go can really get you going quite fast, right?
It's not that easy, because what makes sense is to talk with the people you don't know, with the strangers, with the people who are awkward to you, not with your friends and family, because your friends and family share huge part of your perspective. And speaking to the with the people who you don't know, speaking with the people who speak different language, even if it's the same language in terms of the nationality, but it's different in terms of their worldview. It's not easy, but it's really worth doing, because it's a true source of inspiration.
Brilliant. And then,
Even listening to the language that people talk, the notions they use, it can be very surprising.
I think talking about the research and startups and that kind of stuff, right? You also, at the beginning of the pandemic, you got yourself busy with something and a little bit of a side project. Can you talk a little bit about that and then how what we just discussed? Because you're like someone, people laugh at me when I say it, but it's an actual saying: you eat your own dog food. So you do what you practice what you preach. Like how did this? I mean, first describe the project a little bit, and then also like what the process you follow to get it to a point where you could hand it over.
So it was a somehow model inspiration, because it was inspiration of observing the people around us and their challenges at the beginning of pandemic. And what I noticed, and it appeared that some people around me have this similar observations, was that there's a new group of people at the market, at the world around us. New needs appeared. It's a group of people who lost the ability to perform their jobs, their professional activities, due to the pandemic, due to the lockdown, because they were involved in the direct contact with the people. They were giving trainings, they were giving lessons, they were leading workshops, all the sorts of activities that were involving the
Face to
direct
face.
contact
Yeah.
with the group of the people. And it was a huge group of people. They were not able to work anymore in the situation that we were experiencing. And it was another group of people who were also in the new situation. That was something that had to be noticed. It was a group of people, or they were families with the kids who were struggling with managing their way of operating within one. This within one flat, within one living area, with parents trying to work remotely, and the kids not having school at the beginning, or having it, but for the part of the day, and not having a good idea how to spend the rest of the day. And understanding these two fields of needs, two areas of needs, and merging these 2 points of view, we came to the idea that those two groups are somehow complementary, because the people who were left without the possibility of performing their activities, in the same time they are able to give to those poor kids and poor struggling families what they really need. And we decided to build a platform that will support both groups. And it sounds easy. It sounds easy to make a marketplace where you can offer your activities and you can send your kids there and this will work. But it's not that easy. We must have understood what are the exact needs and the barriers at each side. And we ended up with with a huge program of supporting the trainers, the workshop givers, and all the people on that side with their challenge to go online. It wasn't that easy. It wasn't that obvious.
And that's a bridge,
So
right?
we
They weren't used to. They weren't. I forgot about that because for me the connection between the two needs makes sense. But then on the one side, the trainers aren't necessarily savvy to go online, right? Or leverage digital.
there were barriers. Yes, there
Yeah.
were clear barriers that had to be identified. We supported them in cooperating within the group of trainers to share the good practices, to learn from each other. So it was much more than just a marketplace. And for the parents, it was also not that obvious because they were saying, well, it's so many activities available at the moment. My Facebook is like exploding with the offers of someone making origami online and telling the stories and so on. But how do I know what of them is worth my time and which of them will be something attractive for my kid? How do I know it? And we found out that it's about a system of sort of recommendation that will fit to your kid, that you will be able to set up the the focus for
Yeah.
your kid, and then we will help you to find the right activities for your kid, not just find the activities. So we went far beyond the idea of a marketplace by understanding both sides.
It's actually.
We did we did a lot of research for it.
And
It
this is
wasn't
what
a
this is
huge
about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge quantitative study at any point. We just talked to the people a lot. We were inviting the people from different places. We were approaching them by the online groups of interest and inviting the completely strange people for the project, asking about how they feel, how they struggle with the situation. Uh, it was a lot of focus groups, a lot of individual interviews, and they were like happening all the time during the whole project.
Yeah.
So it was
It's,
evolving.
it's like you always say to me, it's not a separate phase because it sounds like what you're describing is that there was an initial idea of connecting these two groups. And then as you kind of dive deeper into that, you realize that there's additional needs that need to be solved or problems that need to be solved. And then that evolves the project even more. But in the meantime, the rest of the projects, the work still continues, right? It's not that everything slows down and wait for Kasia to have an interview with someone.
Absolutely. It was evolved. Our way of thinking was evolving along the journey that was coming from one iteration of interaction with the potential users from both groups to the another. So we were evolving in our way of thinking. The whole concept was evolving with the iterations. We went quite a long way from the
And
starting
And
point.
Kasha, and the thing is also, I mean, this is a startup, right? And that you guys have built. But do you think that bigger organizations are going to get to that point, or are they already there to be able to be so reactive to insights?
I think there's no other way because our tools are getting more and more efficient in delivering us the instant information. So it's it's always the question who will be faster here. If technology allows us to react quickly, the ones that will be able to adapt to this to this rhythmus will
Yeah,
win.
excellent. Kasha, I think we need to start wrapping it up so I can let you off the hook because I know you had a long week, you're tired, you've got some adventures coming up. But just as a wrap up, right? So one thing that I learned today, or something that I'm taking away, is really like what you mentioned right at the beginning, amongst a lot of other things, is like thinking about where you are in the process or where you find yourself, because designing something and managing something in the customer experience spaces can be completely or can be different kind of aspects. But you know, if someone walks away from the stream, like thinking about our conversation, what would you say is one of the key, or a few of the key points?
I will develop your thoughts about thinking where you are, at which point of this journey you are, and I would give you 3 inspirations for 3 different stages where you or your audience can possibly find themselves. So when you are looking for the inspiration, when you try to define what you have to do, when you start designing the solution, try to look as broadly as possible. Try to look with the as odd perspective as possible, with as different view as possible from the one that you normally have. So it may make sense to invest more in the research in that phase, even if it seems it's the very beginning. Let's play safe at the beginning. If you have to invest more attention into the research, this is the right moment. But then when you already know what you want to achieve and you start iterating with your solution, you don't need to look that broadly. But what you need to do then is to keep constant feedback, constant evaluation with your customers. So it can be a sort of I would call it a junk research. It doesn't necessarily have to be really good research, extensive research. It can be getting out of home, getting out of the office, grabbing a few people, 3, 4 people, taking 10 minutes of their time, checking your solution, but do it frequently, do it regularly, get this feedback as frequently as you can. Don't do it too frequently, don't do too much of it, because it will stop you. You don't have to over research your solution.
Don't lose momentum.
But don't avoid doing
Yeah.
it. And when you already have the working solution, make an advantage of all the data you will have around it, because you will have a lot of data already on board. So utilize it as much as possible and try to go beyond just fixing problems. Try to find the insights, try to find the inspirations.
Good stuff. And Kasia, before you go, I have to bring this up. Right? Do you remember this?
I knew that you will do it.
Yes.
Of course, I do remember it. It was a terrible photo, and I think a wonderful speech we have together.
Yeah, we had a good time presenting at World Usability Day back in the day when we were still rolling together. And then I will never forget that someone looked at this photo, because this is like the strangest photo that was ever taken of myself as well, looking at that. And then someone posted in the comments, say like, we do look like the Antwoord. And Kasia, to be honest with you,
I love this comment and I love this photo.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think we are kind of the Antwoord of experience design, you know. I mean, I'll lay the claim down there and people can agree or disagree, you know, whatever they think. But I know what the truth is.
I'm proud of it.
Exactly.
I'm proud of it, and I want to tell you that I'm really grateful for having this opportunity to become an Antwoord with you.
Kasia, I mean, where can people find you? I mean, I know you're not the huge socialite yet, but you have a few channels where people can keep an eye on you, because you're also going to be presenting in Hamburg soon, if I'm not mistaken. So
it already took place recently, so it's a fresh thing.
I'm very professional.
Things happen very quickly. We don't even notice them.
I also think that you're gonna be live soon in Polish, right? So for the Polish folks watching, you're gonna be doing a live show. I think I saw something go past on one of my feeds. Like, drop a note. Like, where can people catch you again?
I try to keep my LinkedIn profile updated in terms of all valuable content I have at hand. So if you are interested, I invite you to follow my LinkedIn profile. And if anything will be worth sharing, I will share it.
Kasia, I want to say thank you to you once again for joining me. It's a huge, huge honor. And I wish you all the best going forward. And hopefully we can have a nice Polish beer, or I know you're not really on the beer. I know what you drink. Hopefully we can have a drink together soon.
I hope so.
Cool. Kasia, thank you so much. Catch you on the flip side.
See you.
Ciao. Well, there you have it. Kasia Gawlik. What an awesome, awesome lady. Like, tell you what, working with her was one of the highlights of my career. And then another awesome lady I want to introduce, if I can bring her into my feed here, is my lovely friend Tammy. And Tammy, are you there, Tammy?
I certainly am.
Excellent. I just need to center you again, like we always do, you know.
I'm sorry, I'm always a little off center.
Yeah, but I mean, it's oops, wrong way, that side. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, let's get the volume right. Tammy, thank you so much for joining me again. We have another profile to review today from a dear friend. By the way, how are you doing? We haven't even spoken before the show yet.
I'm doing great. I have to say, you just lifted my spirits were good, but you lifted them even more with the photo of you and Kasia there. That and the other photo, that almost put me over the edge. I almost had to pick myself up off the floor.
It's next level stuff, but it was so fun. And like, I mean, what a talent. And this, I mean, if you listen to Kasia, for example, and the way she speaks, I'll never forget coming to Poland the first time and meeting a lot of similar design folks here. And I mean, except for the lady on the other side of this door, people like Kasia
Yes.
and the design community is one of the reasons that part of the reason that I'm in Poland, because there's some real energy and some really deep knowledge in the industry here. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Good to know. And I know you are. You only hang out with high quality people. So
Cool people. I mean, look what's happening right here. You know. Talking about cool people, before I do that,
yes,
you know, I forgot to say something, because this is a sponsored segment. I just decided today this is a sponsored segment, and I can't switch the sponsorship on and off. Where is it? I'm really doing not a. Oh, this is because it's on the wrong side, I think.
Okay.
Let me do this. You're seeing live production happening right here, Tammy. Boom. Okay, that's in the wrong space. But what you have there, if I move it over to that side, I'm doing a terrible job today, Tammy. Let me do this.
I think terrible is a little bit of an overstatement.
Yeah, just half not great. But I just want to tip my hat.
A little wobbly.
A little wobbly. And I just want to tip my hat to
It is
Tammy.
Friday.
And I need something stronger than coffee. It's a long week. It's a long week. Tammy, I just want to thank you for doing these little reviews with us. I mean, if you watching this and you want to know a little bit more, a lot more about amping up and looking at work from the inside out, I encourage you to check out Tammy's podcast, where she talks to a whole bunch of interesting people. Tammy's also got a book coming out soon. So how's that going, Tammy?
It's very exciting. So the book is being edited right at this moment. And I just hired a designer to do the cover. So it's moving along beautifully. Can't wait to see how the cover comes out. And yeah, it's going to start to look like a real book. So it's it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Times.
Yeah. I feel
Tammy,
like a grown-up now.
Yeah. Let's get cracking, if you don't mind. Let's
do that.
Let's get our Friday on the go here. I just want to see if I can do a bit better job here with getting this nice and centered over here. So our next victim here is Mike Sinclair.
Yes.
He's a kind of technology guy, project and program manager. I'm going to keep quiet. The only thing I'll share with you, and like I've mentioned to you before, is that his objective, and also for the viewers, his objective is really, he's a Workday, I don't want to say developer, but he works in the Workday space. It's a technology platform. And, you know, maybe a potential business coming his way, or maybe employer. That's kind of where he wants to position but he fundamentally wants someone to look at his profile and go, this guy's an expert.
Mm-hmm. And let's also add, Workday is a human resources technology platform.
Correct. Yes.
So that might also, well, I guess if people know what Workday is, they would know that already. But anyway, so yes. So first of all, lovely picture, Mike. One thing that I would suggest that you do is do something with the banner up above that lovely picture. Put something in there that just catches our attention and tells us something else about you, because what you have there is the sort of the typical, just whatever, I don't even know what to call that. That LinkedIn used to put something in there that looked like a constellation. Now they're just putting this color or something there.
Yeah.
So throw a nice photo in there, maybe a nice place you've traveled to, Mike, or something else that is meaningful to you. And that can be a nice conversation starter. But otherwise, everything looks really great here. I love the fact that you're in Madrid. It's a great city. I got to go there when I was 12 years old. That's kind of a fun memory. So let's see what else. So the other thing that you've done a great job with is you've made it clear to people that they can reach out to you for certain things. Sometimes people don't make that clear. So there's that section down there, reach out to Mike for. So there's a place where you can go into the settings and make that explicitly clear, and that will also feed into the algorithm and let people know. Let's see if we click on show more, what shows up down there.
Okay.
Aha.
This is myself
so
and Mike did
that's
Alt
just
MBA.
showing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you and he have in common there.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what his about section looks like, because that's another area that's very important. Oh, this is great. I did look at this ahead of time. So I really thought that Mike did a great job with his about section. He did a beautiful job sort of segmenting this piece, because he starts out talking about his passions, and then talks about kind of the trajectory of his career, then outlines some of the highlights of some of his accomplishments with some of the quantifiable or more quantitative measures of some things he's accomplished, and then he talks about his strengths. So that's all great. I think the one thing that, and I also like the fact that he shares some of his interests. You know, he has an interest in startup investing, or that he created a podcast based on mystery stories for kids. So he adds some interesting content in there just about what his interests are. I think that's wonderful. I would also say the other thing that he did really beautifully here is he says at the beginning up here, I am passionate about my projects and the teams I lead. And then he says, I am not happy to just tick the boxes. Nice. I would almost put that first. And I almost would switch that around and say, as a project manager, I am not happy to just tick the boxes. Because I love it when somebody comes up with a phrase like that, it just sort of gives you a feeling of, oh, this is somebody who really wants to go above and beyond, and has some kind of a metaphorical expression or something about who they are. So I think that's really, really important, to give people an idea in this section about who you are, not just what you've done or accomplished. So he's done a really, really nice job with all of that here.
Good one, Mike.
So far, he's knocking it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. I'd say the only thing right now is the banner up above, you know, and you can always add a little bit more flair in here, but I think he's done, you know, a really good job. I think, you know, maybe some of the language in the summary area, in the about area, could be a little more dynamic, you know, rather than comfortable in both waterfall and agile methodologies, maybe a little more active language in some areas. You know, I think that sometimes people get a little passive in some of their language. And I don't think it's a big issue here, but I'm also trying to give some input here that's also helpful to other people who might be listening to
Yeah.
this.
Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see what else we have here. Because I want to, let's see, activities. So, so these are some things where Mike commented and shared some posts. Excellent. You want to keep doing that on a regular basis. And I don't know how frequently Mike does that, but it looks like he's definitely been active lately enough. Now I see his activity that he has 742 followers. What that really means is that he has 742 connections on LinkedIn. So when you see at the top, you don't have to go to the top, but when it says 500 plus, that means that, you know, that's how many connections you have. So he has 742. I would say that if he's really looking to be seen and to get noticed, that 742 is good, but keep going. Keep adding to your connections. They don't all have to be people in your field, but just keep getting those numbers up, because the more connections you have, I'm not saying you have to have thousands, but the more you have, the more active you are, the more visible you'll be. So that's important.
Tammy, maybe this is one for a later conversation, because you also mentioned to me you've got one or two other topics that you could bring forward, perhaps on another episode, but also like thinking about kind of different strategies of finding those connections, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be going and sending haphazard requests all over the place. It might be content creation or some other things that we could probably look into.
Right. And I actually was going to make some of those suggestions today, but we can also spend another session, even if we want to just talk about, you know, different techniques for increasing your network or being strategic about your network.
Yeah. I mean, you can drop a few tips. I just didn't want to like catch you off guard, but if you have a few thoughts, and maybe we can dedicate another one like more holistic, but if you have a few thoughts around it, like fire away.
Yeah, and there's always room to talk more about how to expand your network and to get creative with that and to have that become something that comes more naturally, because most people don't always, well, I would say most people, not everybody, but most people don't naturally think on a day-to-day basis about taking steps to increase their network or to engage in connecting with other people in a way that's really going to enhance their relationships with different people as they go through their lives. And I think there's lots of little things that you can do day to day that just don't even occur to you. But if you start to practice some of these things, they become second nature. So if we look at his experience, we see that he's got his employment. And I would say that it would be useful for him to have some bullets or some descriptors underneath each of those jobs, just so that somebody has an idea of what he's actually done in each of those places. He's certainly had some, employment in some really great places, and it'd be good to know what he did there, because the job titles can give you just so much information. You don't want people assuming that they know what he has done. And I can imagine that there's a difference between what he's doing at Verisure and what he's doing at Lightfin.
Can I give you a quick comment and comment slash question? Because what is interesting about Mike is, because I mean, Mike is also like, it's actually a friend. I know him, or I know a little bit about him. And so he's a very technology driven guy. Like, I kind of look up to him. He's one of those technology guys. But then
Mm.
when you look at the producer of the Lightfin case files, at the
Yeah.
beginning of the pandemic, he actually dipped into writing a kid's story and actually producing it and turning it into a podcast. And that is the Lightfin thing. And when I
Ah.
saw it, I thought that, you know, you might not know this, but like if he described it a little bit, it also shows the different aspects of Mike. You know, I think even in
Mhm.
in his experience, he can bring out a little bit more of his personality, his creative side, or
Mhm.
you know, like
Yeah.
there's more dimensions to Mike than just tech or
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on how much he wants to shine a light on those different sides of himself, you always get a choice as to what you include or don't include. I see people's you want your resume, of course, to mirror what's in your LinkedIn to some degree. You can also put a lot more in your LinkedIn profile. But what I notice some people will do with their resumes is they'll try to cram everything in that they've ever done. They feel this obligation to tell the truth, the whole truth. And the fact is, you don't have to tell everything you've ever done. If there's something that you've done in the past that you never want to do again. For example, let's say you had a job in the past or a couple of jobs in the past where you were responsible for putting budgets together and you really don't enjoy doing budgets. Don't include it. You don't have to tell the
true.
whole world that you know how to put a budget together. It doesn't mean that if you apply for another job at some point that requires that and you're willing to do it, that you might not include that again somewhere along the way. But if you really don't want to shine a light on something you just don't enjoy doing, and you've been around the block a few times, you have the privilege of not including every little thing that you've ever done. This
Great
isn't
point.
about, including everything that you've done. It's about including the things that you would be willing to do again, that you're particularly proud of, or that you feel are good building blocks for where you are headed next. So let's see what else we have here.
Okay. Education coming up.
Very good. Excellent. Very good. All kinds of good things there. I'm not sure what Sunward Park is. He just has the dates. So it would be good to know if he's going to keep that in there. What is that? Otherwise, it's probably meaningless unless it's something that people in the industry know what that is.
Yeah. Mike, is that your kindergarten? What is that? He's gonna, yeah.
We will find out.
Yeah. Wow, this is
Maybe.
probably important
Okay.
for technology guys, right? This the next part.
I think it's important for anybody who wants to show that they're staying, especially in technology. You want to show that you're staying up to date on the latest. I'll tell you a very quick story. I had a client several years ago who, for a whole host of reasons, had been out of work for about 7 years, and he was really mid-career. He was maybe in his early 40s and he was ready to come back to work. And he was a software engineer. So when you are in software and you haven't worked in 7 years, good luck getting anybody to hire you, right?
Yeah.
But what he did over those 7 years, even though he had some interruptions and there were some health issues and other issues, he made it his business to stay up to date on various computer languages and pieces of software and all kinds of things. So over the time that he was not technically working, he was involved with specific networking groups of other technology people. So he had relationships, very important, but he also kept up with certain certifications. So after working with me, he got a job. And then he moved to another job and another job. And I'm not in touch with him these days, but I know from LinkedIn that he has remained employed.
Great
But
point.
that's the kind of profile where when you're out of work that many years, especially in a technology type role, that could really be the kiss of death if you want to stay in that field.
Shows your
So he did all the
activities,
right things. He really did. And it was a combination of that relationship building that he maintained over that time by staying connected to some of these different professional associations and groups that made a huge difference.
Yeah, because I think
So,
that it's such a good point. I think you've also spoken about this before, and might have been in a separate conversation where, like, you don't want to have that gap happen in your resume, and this is kind of a great way to show that there's things that happen in between. But none of us kind of just stop working
right.
and then do nothing. There's
Well, some
things
people
that happen.
do actually. Some people do nothing, and that's not good, to be honest with you. But
Yeah,
in this day and age, there are lots of mergers and acquisitions, reductions in force. There's all kinds of things that happen, especially in I think high technology kinds of organizations, and so people do get laid off, and it's not that unusual anymore. So I think it's less of a mark against the person who's been laid off. uh, I'd say it's less so. There are some employers out there, I will say, who really prefer to hire people who are currently employed, and they will only look at people who are currently employed. I think that's unfortunate, but I do know that there are some of those out there.
interesting.
At the
Yeah,
same time, for those people who have been laid off, you don't want to work for those people anyway, because they're just not interested for one reason or another. However, if you have been laid off, there are lots of things that you can do in the interim while you're looking to be able to keep yourself up to date, fresh, connected, 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 connected.
connected. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I've seen lots of people go through that and come out the other side doing just fine. But it can be very, it can be very difficult and trying.
Just
So
keep on, keep on, keep on.
keep on keeping on, and
Yeah.
and make sure you have support, because it can get very discouraging.
Well,
So let's see, he's got some nice endorsements and skills. It's all very good.
yeah.
Let's keep going. What I really wanted to see was,
Recommendations.
yeah, he's got his recommendations. And I always now, hopefully he might have some. Let's see, that's 2016. So,
Yeah. Oopsie, there's quite a few,
oh,
but
he
they
does. Look at him.
yeah, they're all older though.
Okay.
But I mean, this is still a
Yeah.
fair amount.
Oh yeah, no, this is great. I would say, it's probably time to get a few newer ones if you can. They don't necessarily have to be from, if you start asking people for recommendations, like if he asked his like current boss or something, they'd say, "Are you looking?" So you have to ask for them with discretion, of course. Um, so depending on what he's really trying to accomplish, he might want to, sometimes someone like him, if he's working with customers or vendors, sometimes you can get a nice recommendation from an external person that you've worked with. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody inside your company. So I
Mm.
recommend that as well. So just maybe get some that have a 2021 date on it, maybe
Yeah,
one or two.
and even for like for me as an entrepreneur, Kasia, like what I forgot about, I looked at some of the work that I was doing because I'm gathering recommendations for my business, but then I thought,
Mhm.
and I got some because my clients, I don't mess up all my projects, um, but so I get the recommendations, and I just realized I should actually have asked them to do that on LinkedIn rather than by email or something where I can use it on my website. So I'm going like, maybe that's an opportunity missed.
It's not an opportunity missed. You can still request a recommendation from them.
If you're watching,
There's
I'm
no,
coming.
yeah. Yeah, you can definitely still request that. It's a funny thing, recommendations, because when you ask people for one, they write it and then you still get to approve it. So, you know, the only ones that you're going to include are the ones that you like.
True.
So it's a funny thing. The other thing I've been noticing lately is that some of my clients have been getting hired for jobs, and the employers are not even checking their references. I've seen quite a bit of that lately, and I've asked some of the employers about this, and they've said, first of all, they can check people out in other ways. They don't necessarily have to talk to references, and they know that
Yeah.
references are generally going to be positive, because why would anybody give the name of somebody who they know isn't going to say good things about them? So I think that's logical. But I thought I was shocked the first time that I knew someone who got hired and the employer didn't check their references. And I thought, what's wrong with that employer? Why are they not, checking references? Something's wrong here. That's a red flag. But then I've noticed that it's actually happening a lot more. So I think, though, that makes the case for having a really solid LinkedIn profile and a very solid presence in social media, because these are places they will be checking you out.
Yeah,
and I know for sure that they always check your LinkedIn.
Yeah, and the thing is, Tammy, I think it's also not about individual kind of reference. It's like it's having a collection. And I mean, like you mentioned before in one of our conversations, you said like you can see when people, I think it was you, when people are starting to look for a job, they all of a sudden their references increase. But I think employers can see that. It's like when you get to a profile, I think we're kind of naturally going, okay, this is holistic, maybe also supported by some other social channels or wherever, and then word of mouth, of course, what other people say to you. So it's a combination of things. So having some of these things just to build up that robustness of your profile always helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't hurt, for sure. So I want to go down a little further to see where he has his interests. Yes. Now, if we go a little further down,
There
we
you
will
go.
see, click on see all. Okay.
Yeah, this is not,
Let's see.
let me just go back, see if I clicked on the right thing. Yeah, it's not showing. It might
Can
be
you
a
see
bug
the,
on my side. Nothing here. Just school,
well,
Fort MBA.
up above. Look at the, can we see the, there's several menu items up above.
Yeah, let me quickly get this to show you what I'm seeing, if I can do, because at the moment there's documents, there's posts, and for some reason,
Does
I
it
don't
show
know.
groups?
Let me quickly change the view here.
There we go. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if this, because
So
this
when
looks
you
like his activity feed, not.
yeah, this looks like his activity feed, not his.
Yeah.
So I did check his I did check his.
It might be the iPad app giving a bit of trouble, because I'm clicking on interests.
Right.
Over
And
here.
I checked this out ahead of time, and I clicked on it, and I got at the top, I got groups, interests, and something else. So that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's I think there's something wrong with this link on my iPad.
Okay. Well,
we found a
let's
bug,
just
LinkedIn.
have a little.
Yeah.
All right. So here's normally, I think, what you would find. And this is really, so when I clicked on that in preparing for this, I found a menu up above that had, I think it had interests, who he was following, like well-known people or group, other entities that he might be following. And because it's always interesting to see what other people are interested in. And then I saw groups. So it's always interesting to see what groups people join. Some groups you can just join. Some groups you have to get, you have to apply to join. You have to, the administrator has to let you in. I think that groups are another option that a lot of people don't take advantage of in LinkedIn. And some groups are very active, some are not. you kind of have to vet them out to see how active they appear to be, how many members they have. This is a function in LinkedIn that's changed a lot in the last few years. It used to be really, really cool, especially with a paid account. You could go in and you could even see what the demographics of the group were and really drill down so that you could identify, very specific people in the group that you might want to network with. I think it's harder to do that now, even with a paid account, which is a little unfortunate, but what still remains is that when you are in the same group as another person, even if they are not technically in your network, you still have accessibility to them as if they were in your network. And you still might want to, invite them to be in your network. But the fact is that they've joined the same group you have. So there's something that you both have decided you're both interested in, whether it's that you're both alumni of the same school, or that you are both interested in the same discipline or functional area, or you're both in the same geographic region and happen to be both interested in a certain industry, because there's so many different groups segmented in different ways, and you can join up to 50 groups. Now, joining 50 groups sounds kind of crazy, like who has time for all of that? Well, the only reason to join 50 groups is simply for accessibility to a variety of people and also to be visible to them. So, of course, you're not going to be running around connecting with people in 50 groups, but this is about being found, not just about being active all the time. The thing is in these various groups, you can post, let's say, you can start a discussion or ask a question, or you can pop into various groups and, oh, there we go. There's some groups.
While you're talking, I'm trying to see if I can do some trickery to get I'm just going to switch us off for a second. Well, I can't get this. Sorry, Tammy. But you can see the groups over there. I need to up my my screen share again. But you can see the groups over there. Let me see if I can. I can't really get it over, but you can see he's in customer sharing movements. Yeah.
Right. So we can see the different kinds of groups that he's in, and you can see how many members. Now, it's, once you actually click on a group, you can see like the last time that anybody was active in the group. And that'll give you at least an idea of, how busy is this group? Are people engaged in it? And so then you can decide whether it's worth spending a lot of time in that particular group. When you see that a group has, hundreds or thousands of members, that's encouraging to see that there are that many people. I'd say when you start getting into the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, those groups probably have, a core group of people who are probably active there. And so what's useful about those groups is if, let's say, someone poses a question in the group and you have a good answer for them, well, go ahead and answer their question in the comments. Sometimes somebody might even label your comment a really good answer, and that will bring you to the top of the pile, so to speak. So there's lots of little ways that you can kind of shine and look really good in
super
people's
interesting. I never
eyes,
thought
but
of it.
also in the eyes of the algorithm. So there's ways that you can be helpful to people, make yourself look good. Then on the other end, if, let's say, there's something you want information about that you're either not wanting to ask people that you know directly for some reason, or that you just haven't been able to get your hands around certain kinds of information, or you want to get maybe other people's opinions about, you can throw a question out into the discussion in some of these groups and get all kinds of information. I think that people don't necessarily think of LinkedIn as a place to get information or to do research. And yet it is a very rich resource for all kinds of information and cutting edge information.
I think it's
So
changing, right? Because I've spoken to a few folks that felt like LinkedIn is super antiquated or whatever. But I've recently seen a lot of people talking more. The live streams, of course, like we're doing, is also helping. I think there's the groups, because I've also seen on my side, I've not been really, I belong to a lot of groups, I'm not very active, and I'm thinking about like increasing that a little bit to connect with more people. I think it's a bit of an undiscovered gem that you're highlighting here.
well, and then there's people who participate and there's people who don't. I know some people who are on LinkedIn every single day, and I know some people who are never on LinkedIn. And there are some people who, choose to be, go to Clubhouse every day or go into
Yeah.
some other, medium. But it's still here. If there's, millions upon millions upon millions of people who are engaged with it in one way or another. And when you think about how many people do you really need to know or really need to meet in order to accomplish whatever goals you're trying to accomplish, all it takes is one or two keenly interested people to help you get to your next step.
Exactly.
So, it really isn't that many people. So, and yet there's, these people are sitting right there in LinkedIn. They are right there at the ready for you. You just have to show up.
Exactly. Tammy, I think it's nearly time to wrap this one up so we can have a weekend.
I think so. I agree.
So
Yeah.
Mike has got a bit of work to do. I'm upset with him that he has only got 2 languages, because I know he speaks a bit of Spanish. He definitely speaks English, and definitely speaks a little bit of Afrikaans too. So Mike, could be 3. Come on.
All right, Mike. Yeah.
Tammy, thank you so much for joining me again. I hope I can twist
Thank
you
you for
on
having me.
for another session. We're gonna find 1 or 2 more victims that are on the list, and then perhaps also line up a
Right.
little conversation about how to leverage this interesting platform even more. I mean, it's been
Yes.
an interesting journey. Like, some of the tips that you've given has already paid off for me. So let's do some more.
Oh, great. Let's do it.
Cool.
Happy
Okay,
to do
Tammy.
it.
Thanks
All
again for
right.
joining. Okay, and
My
that's
pleasure.
once again, thanks to Tammy, my dear friend, and I'm super excited to see her book coming to fruition quite soon, and have it in my hand to show you what it looks like. As I wrap this up, I just want to say thanks again to Kasia for joining me in the stream. Boy, has she grown, and she's doing some interesting stuff. Then also thanks to Tammy for joining, and then everybody got some great comments today. Thank you for taking the time to watch the stream. Then also, as I'm involving this and trying to grow this kind of platform and get the conversations going, I want to encourage you to jump into creativecoffeebreak.live, join my mailing list there, where I can tell you more about what's coming up and what's next. I've got some interesting tools coming my way that I want to review, because I'm still doing those videos as well. If you haven't seen it, head over to my YouTube channel. I have a nice review there of the fabulous deck that helps you develop and design better public speaking things. I don't have an insert for that, but you can find it on my YouTube channel. And yeah, as always, if you've watched this at any stage and you're still here, drop a comment in the comments to tell me where you're from and how you're watching this, even if you watch the recording. And as always, appreciate you watching this, and catch you in the comments.